Thanks so much, Carmen. Welcome, everyone. And well, for me, good morning. I don't know if everyone is in the same time zone here. Amanda Elliott, I am Senior Program Officer and Director of California Programs for Main Street America and the team member for Urban Maine, and happy to be here with you all today. Kenyatta?
Yes. Hi. Good morning also for me, but good afternoon for other folks. My name is Kenyatta McLean. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the co-managing director of Black Space.
And I guess it's off to me. So hello, everyone. Bobby Boone from And Access. And Access is a retail real estate consulting practice that focuses on entrepreneurship as well as under-resourced communities. So thinking about how retail and restaurants, independent ones, often serve as the solution for our commercial corridors and really providing that as an economic opportunity for continued growth.
Fantastic. Well, I think people want to know a little bit more about the Main Street America program and our Urban Maine program. I do have some slides to share with everyone. So I'm going to share my screen. This is a new format for me, so hopefully no glitches here. Let's see. Okay. Well, that doesn't seem to be working. I'm used to Zoom, not used to this format. Let's see if I open it up. Maybe that's what I need to do first. Can anyone see a screen here? No. Okay. Well, I am just going to walk you through my presentation to tell you about Main Street America and the Urban Maine program. Main Street is a part of the National Trust. We are a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and Urban Maine is a program of the National Main Street Center. And Main Street is a national network of more than 1,200 communities in 45 states. The program has served more than 2,000 communities since its inception. Urban Maine offers a range of community-driven economic development services to help under-resourced, older, historic neighborhood commercial districts restore economic vitality and quality of life. And we specialize in services of professional development, networking, and advocacy for the field of urban commercial district practitioners. And so the Main Street approach, identifies the assets and the competitive advantage to build from those strengths. The Main Street approach is centered around transformation strategies, and the strategies really help to articulate a deliberate path for a community to strengthen a downtown or a commercial district. And we do that using the 4-point Main Street approach, which is economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. The revitalization program and its transformation strategies are informed by solid understanding of the local market data and really informed by the community. So urban neighborhood districts face a different set of challenges than some traditional Main Street programs, but there are also other opportunities. Community image building is very important and can be quite difficult for neighborhoods and commercial districts in urban settings. Many are trying to overcome negative images of crime, physical blight, and create new positive images to set the district apart. And some of the work that we've done in Boston Main Street, the city of Boston allocates $1.8 million to the Main Street program annually. They have 20 commercial districts, and they have over 217 million of private dollars invested in 606 new businesses that were launched from 2000 2013 to 2019, and over 450 buildings have been rehabbed. And then in the District of Columbia, they have 26 commercial districts and has had significant impact. Over $3 million in private dollars have been reinvested in main streets, and 369 businesses launched with a total of 7,431 jobs. So as you can see, the impact is great. Right now, one of the major projects that we are involved in is the Invest Southwest. And there are 12 commercial districts that we are supporting. Invest Southwest is a community improvement initiative under Mayor Lori Lightfoot to marshal the resources of multiple city departments, community organizations, and corporate and philanthropic partners toward 10 communities, and with a focus on 12 key commercial corridors. And Main Street America and Urban Maine is providing revitalization services to build capacity for the commercial districts. We also have work that we are doing in Atlanta. You heard earlier from Luano talking about the Sweet Auburn district, as well as Memphis. And we provide organizational development, fundamentals of the Main Street approach, and help to build capacity and analysis for those organizations. So that's just an overview. I'm sorry I was not able to actually share the slides with you with this new format, but hopefully that gave you some background and information about some of the work that we are doing in our urban districts and through our Main Street program. I am a former Main Street executive director in a Main Street program in California, in Richmond, California. We are just up from Oakland and Berkeley. And I was there for 13 years. I can tell you firsthand that it can be challenging to work in a district where there's been significant disinvestment and the community is, not always in sync. And you have to do a lot of community engagement and working with governmental agencies and pulling everyone together to really work towards the revitalization effort. And so, Kenyatta, tell me a little bit more about your work and how you're supporting communities.
Thank you so much for sharing your work, Amanda. I'm also going to try to share screen for a second. Okay. Oh, I might not be at the... I think I'm sharing screen, but unfortunately you are getting a preview to this presentation. Okay, so can folks see my screen? Yes, I can't see you all. No? I'm sorry, I can't see you all, so I'm not sure. It says it's sharing this tab.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, is that a different format for me? So sorry that I wasn't, up on how to share the screen there.
Oh yeah, no worries. Okay, so jumping into this, please just let me know if you all can't see slides, because I can't see you anymore. My name's Kenyatta McLean. Again, these are a couple things about me. I wanted to first kind of start with sharing that I'm an urban planner. I've worked primarily in economic development and also heritage conservation. I'm sharing this photo of of Beauty Island, which is a beauty supply in Rialto, California, where I'm from, because it's been a really important kind of arts and crafts store for me, is what I call beauty supplies often. And being a Black-owned beauty supply in Southern California, it's a bit of a unique gem. So it's always been a place for me to kind of come home to. And so I'm sharing that as one of my Black spaces. I'm going to talk to you really about a couple different things. I'm co-managing director of Black Space, so I'd love to share about our manifesto and some of our work in heritage conservation, and also about a couple Main Street projects that I've researched or worked on. So moving into Black Space is a collective I'm really proud to be a part of. We are interdisciplinary collective and platform for Black urbanists. That means folks that are interested in or nerd out about the built environment. We were founded in New York City in 2015 and now have spread to affiliate groups in places like Oklahoma, Chicago, Atlanta, and also Indianapolis. We show up in the world in a few different ways, including gathering spaces for urbanists, also creating workshops, making published content, and co-collaborating with Black-led community organizations on projects. So I will kind of start with sharing one of our first pieces of one of our first pieces of published content from Black Space, which is the Black Space Manifesto. We published this in 2019, and it's a manifesto of 14 principles that really is a public acknowledgement that while what we do is really important as urbanists, the way we do it is also very critical. Our past oppressions, triumphs, and future aspirations really help guide us in pushing ourselves as a group, and also our interactions with one another, partners, and communities. So through this manifesto of 14 principles, we push ourselves and our partners and our fields to really work closer to realize a present and future where Black people, Black spaces, and Black culture matter and thrive. And these principles have been used by a couple different, several different kind of folks, whether it's transportation, economic development practitioners, also like artists have used our principles as well. So I just want to highlight a couple of them as different pieces that can be, used in economic development and particularly Main Street's work. So thinking about centering the lived experience, I think we all know how important it is to know our business owners, also know our local shopping community and property owners, and really starting to create events and efforts that center their lived experience. So for example, if we're on our main streets, there's places where folks are informally gathering. Is this a conversation to talk to a business owner or property owner about creating a sidewalk cafe? If that's something that might make more sense to reprogram that space in something that's works for the business. In addition, I want to share just those final 4 principles, and I want to call out cultivate wealth here. We really talk about wealth being not only not at all money, and really focusing more on wealth in terms of time and wealth in terms of the freedom to fail and learn. So I think it's really important for us to think of our main streets not only as money generators, but also as spaces where entrepreneurs can grow and strengthen their talent within community. So I'm really interested always in collective access to capacity build through merchants associations. Outside of this manifesto, I want to share a couple of things that we've done as Black Space. And again, I'll continue to highlight principles as I talk through this work. So in 2018, we came together with no real hard design output, but instead with the intent to listen to people to talk about heritage in Brownsville, New York. We were interested in how heritage conservation acts could, work against the cultural erasure that we were seeing in so many different New York City neighborhoods. We ended up hearing over, 20 or so stories, mapping about 62 different cultural assets, all to better understand heritage in Brownsville. This work came through a different series of kind of expressions or pieces of the project, which included us meeting and gathering with cultural producers in the neighborhood to co-create not only a set of heritage values in Brownsville to be used, in any of their projects, but we also co-developed events such as a pop-up neighborhood storytelling trail that was co-hosted by the Business Improvement District. It was a space for local writers that had a local writing group to share with Brownsville young people stories of Brownsville history, and also in turn, those young people told their stories of Brownsville's and the neighborhood. Unfortunately, it rained that day, so we had to move inside, but we were excited to be along the business corridor doing this work. I want to kind of close on that work by sharing our co-designing Black neighborhood heritage conservation playbook. We learned a lot of lessons in this process, and we share those, our inspirations, and also our experiences in this playbook that we co-designed with Brownsville's Youth Design Center. This playbook was designed to really help people who want to take action in their communities and are interested in how to implement heritage projects in a manifesto-aligned way. So it became very clear to us during this process that we also needed to codify our values. So that manifesto that I shared earlier actually came out after this process, because as we were working and co-developing and co-designing with people, it became clear that we had certain principles of how we wanted to show up in a neighborhood as urbanists. I want to now kind of show a few projects that I've either researched or worked on that have impacted Black Main Streets just quickly. I'm going to start here at the corner of, going to start here at the corner of 7th Street and Florida in Northwest DC. I researched this project particularly during my graduate thesis in 2020, where I was thinking about heritage preservation, and historic preservation, and how it has, failed or not worked for Black communities often because of its kind of narrow values. And so some of those values get very focused on buildings, and because so many different Black communities have been barred through legal and other means from owning property ownership, our ideas of spatial memory keeping can sometimes change. And so here, this is a site where these speakers on this business have, played go-go music for 25 years. And in the midst of all the gentrification happening in DC, that music was threatened. It was threatened by a new resident that music needed to be turned off. And so Don't Mute DC became a heritage conservation movement that came from Black residents interested in preserving the sound of their business corridor. So I think this is like an interesting thing to think about. I want to move forward to my kind of next example that I wanted to just highlight comes from New Orleans. I worked on a commercial plan for St. Bernard, a commercial corridor in the 9th Ward of New Orleans. I did this in 2019, again, in that graduate program. And I share this particular recommendation. Obviously, we came out with a series of recommendations for small businesses, because it really thinks about how to create connections with different communities on a business corridor. So here, there's different elements of this pop-up. This corridor had a lot of underused open space. So we wanted to, program that space. So it was something that property owners and also business owners, the activities happening in those spaces were things that were advantageous to the main street. So creating an open space for people, a space for new entrepreneurs. There are a lot of home businesses and entrepreneurs in New Orleans in that area. So we wanted a space for people to share their business, but also a place for existing business owners to come and have sidewalk sales. So this was a way of bringing those different communities together that often can sometimes see each other as possible competition. And then I'll just end with Flatbush Caton Market, which was a project that I was able to work on as a New York City government worker. I worked for the Department of Small Business Services and also New York City Economic Development Corporation. This was before I left and went into grad school. And Flatbush Caton Market is a market that I was able and blessed to be able to work in. It's a market that is primarily vendors that are older West Indian vendors. And one of their different, it's being managed by Urbane, a Black-led economic development consultant. And Urbane has done a lot of different strategies to bring things such as products from the Flatbush Caton Market into younger Main Street businesses around New York City, so that the products of Flatbush Caton Market are not only available at the market, but also available in main streets around the city. And so that kind of technique creates this circle where people can see a product somewhere at this Grand Rue Market, but then be called to come back into Flatbush Caton. And lastly, I wanted to just end with this statement. I always love artist Alicia Wormsley's work. And I just end today like pushing us to continue to think about what of our methodologies and design really preserve and affirm Black identities. Thank you all so much. And Bobby, I'm excited to hear about your work.
Thank you, Kenyatta.
Yes.
Bobby, I think you had a video. You're muted.
I clicked the mute button a little, one too many times, I guess. So thanks again, Kenyatta. I love like your ideology around how, you know, the beauty supply store is actually arts and crafts. I was talking with a woman who, you know, studies Black beauty and, you know, considering, you know, really establishing that in the city of in Alabama. I can't remember yet right now, but she was just talking about Black beauty, and I was like, man, you know, women really get to like create a masterpiece, like, you know, and then too, but is not as socially acceptable. So, but you know, thinking about like, you know, like the way of playing in art and how like really that is a mainstay in Black culture in terms of creativity is something I really gained from that conversation. But, you know, transitioning over to my work. So And Access, you know, we've worked with communities across primarily, you know, in Michigan, the DC region, as well as a few others in the Midwest. And, you know, historically I've worked, you know, with communities and, you know, national kind of gentrifying developments, and which really led me to creating And Access and really understanding, all right, what are new solutions? Because oftentimes, you know, what we end up with in terms of impact investing means displacement. And so, you know, thinking about, you know, how does that kind of premise really change the way we should go about some of this work, and how and what are the real solutions that are needed to support the communities and the work that they're doing. You know, within, you know, my professional career, I served as a adjunct professor at University of Maryland. And so in that work, I was able to lead a class that was talking about tools to preserve small businesses, which really helped kind of position, you know, the work that I'm doing at And Access, as well as other partnerships that I've built in terms of supporting, you know, minority-owned communities. And so what I'm going to do first is kick off with a understanding of, you know, where we just launched a small business anti-displacement network through the University of Maryland. And this network is really intended to support, you know, various communities within, you know, their policy creation, understanding tools that are non-policy oriented, and preserving minority-owned businesses. So let's see if this works. Can you see my screen? I think so. Yes. Great. So with this, this anti-displacement network, it's really a network of leaders across the nation who are working on, you know, supporting their businesses within these gentrifying neighborhoods. So we understand that in DC, you know, I was in a great conversation with the Kennedy Center's director of operation. He was like, DC's culture, or modern culture, is the culture of gentrification. And how does that really impact, you know, how do you think about the communities in which, you know, we're crafting and cultivating over time? And one of the things that, you know, that very powerful statement said to me, you know, it's like, how are we, you know, ensuring that, you know, all are involved in this? You know, one of the anecdotes was, you know, they don't see a lot of, you know, Black businesses, Black creatives being able to play a part within the culture of gentrification in the district. And so really providing that as an opportunity if we're going to continue with the growth of these businesses and moving them forward. So I'm going to tell you going to start this video, you know, just with that premise of like, you know, hey, here we are in DC, you know, this is a national network, but here we are in DC and how gentrification really is impacting some of the businesses. Ooh.
Southeast DC is, and specifically I'm in Anacostia, historic Anacostia. It is this vibrant neighborhood. It's got so many things going on. It's like the sun shines so much over there. I learned what community actually means by being in Southeast DC. It's known for being one of the poorest, lowest income communities in all of Washington, DC. 70% of east of the river, Southeast DC, are Black people. Homeowners, renters, there's a mix there. There's long-time residents, and right now it is under the threat of major gentrification.
So gentrification is generally the movement of both people and dollars into a lower income, usually historically divested neighborhood. So it's more upper middle income residents moving in, and it's also new development dollars moving in. And usually that has the impact of displacing both residents and small businesses that existed in those neighborhoods prior to that. And oftentimes those businesses and residents are owned by, or the homes are lived in by people of color or immigrants.
I am the owner and chief curator of Nubian Human. We are a Black-owned and Brown-owned ecosystem of independent artists and conscious consumers fueled by pride and purpose. Yeah, it's New York. It's a raw honey. We've worked with over 600 artists at this point. So our store is completely stocked of businesses from all over the world, and they're made by people who look like us. We understood what Southeast DC is, was, and represents, and so it was important for us to be in a community that represented what we were about.
Things that you are seeing right now in Anacostia is massive reinvestment in new development in the neighborhood, in larger businesses.
So as soon as you cross over the bridge into DC, you see cranes and construction and just those signifiers of things that are changing.
And ultimately, like the residents, is likely to put pressures on the rents of small businesses that can easily displace longstanding businesses that are neighborhood serving businesses that really help to meet the needs of residents in the Anacostia neighborhood.
You know, some of the rent and things like that aren't necessarily accessible to those that are in the local community. So it's a concern even for our customers as well. And one of our top 3 concerns from our surveys was that what's going to happen with Nubian Human once gentrification really hits Southeast DC. And just even the small things of like being priced out. At some point, is it going to come that we can't even afford to be here? The cost per square foot is just too much.
This project is to help to fill the gaps in the research in terms of what we know about commercial displacement, how it happens, who's most impacted. This is looking at both people and place-based interventions that will ultimately help these businesses not only just to stay and not to close, but also to help them grow better and really thrive in a rapidly changing neighborhood.
It's having an understanding that, yeah, we are in the same race as our counterparts, but we do start much further behind than a lot of other people. I think having that understanding and awareness and coming into the project will definitely help open or widen your ken and your understanding of what is actually happening. There's a heavy weight to carry. This is the first time for us understanding the ways and nuances of business, that everything is not just buy and sell. There's so much in between that. And this means legacy for our families. So we're trying to break generational challenges by going out and doing something that might be against the grain. We want to teach our future something different, something better.
Excellent. So with that, I wanted to, get to a couple of questions and hear from you about, community development and revitalization. Does that always equal displacement or gentrification? Is it a matter of education or resources that are needed for our community members and small businesses? What are the ways that we can really support local small business development and get our communities engaged around, supporting Black businesses? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
all right.
I can kick us off. So, I don't necessarily know if it always equals gentrification in the traditional sense of, the gentry class, people, the more affluent communities moving in. I think we can, hopefully get to a point where we're able to preserve and increase the financial wealth of the community that is there, just by inducing, some of this increased prominence of these corridors and the businesses that are along them. So it's like, hey, I go to the mall across town, or I go to this shopping district or this other corridor across town, and they're benefiting from my sales, but I don't necessarily have to move into that community in order for it to be of value to me. And so thinking about ways that, that inherent value that is within the communities not only continues to serve and, highlight the successes and the stories and the culture of Black people, but it also, says, hey, I can actually take a part of that if I'm not within that community, and I can, understand why it should be highlighted, celebrated, and taken a part of.
Mm-hmm. Kenyatta,
yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think actually the business owner in Bobby's video was discussing and talking about not only their collective of business owners, but also that they had these conscious consumers. And I think that speaks to this importance that in a time where there is just unrealistic pressure being put on so many different Black neighborhoods through this process of gentrification, it's very important for us to take collective action. So I really love the Anti-Displacement Network, anything that's thinking about us coming together and being less focused on what I think we've all been socialized to think is like American success, which is really focused around the individual making that success. And so I think it's really important for us to go back to some of our own cultural practices that have been rooted in each other. And the last thing I would also say with gentrification is like us being able to like separate what's happening. There's cultural erasure, and then there's like physical displacement. And so I think the great thing is like both Bobby and I have been talking today about both elements of that and how to like, what are strategies to think about. But I think it's important to designate those two as different so that we can have different strategies around it.
Well, I know, from my experience in working in Main Streets that in a lot of communities that have had a ongoing disinvestment, residents and others are just kind of, not engaged and have kind of started to look elsewhere for, products and shopping and all of those things. And, it's challenging to bring them back to the table. So I know that is, one of the first strategies is reinvigorating that interest from our residents and others to be involved in the process. We've also heard that, many property owners may be just sitting on property and not really involved in trying to develop the property, whether it's a matter of resources or whatever. But, what are some of the strategies that you've seen that have helped to engage the community and to bring that pride back?
Yeah, I think you're, right on target with the property ownership. It's largely, it's very hard to, keep a customer base if, there are reasons why the customer base do not want to continue to come back, right? And largely that's, hey, maybe there's a disinvestment within those properties, whether that's structural, systemic, or, just the lack of will. We can, break that whole conversation down for a whole nother like a whole nother call. But, you know, engaging those property owners and ensuring that, you know, they are too bought into the vision and creating, you know, some sense of, you know, catalytic opportunities that really starts to integrate the cultural needs and wants of the community into the physical space. And I think, you know, Kenyatta, you know, mentioned the intersection of 7th and Florida. It's like, you know, as a DC resident, I was like, oh yes, my office used to be 2 blocks away. I was like, I used to jam out to go all the time. But, you know, having owners that also celebrate and understand and, you know, want to perpetuate some of the cultural norms of the community in a way that, you know, is needed. And so I just think, you know, starting with property owner engagement is one of the first. And then I think, you know, if the community is gentrifying, the role of that new developer is actually a key player in saying, hey, property owner, or hey, business owner, we want to, you know, do some impact investing with you as well, in order to realize returns on both sides. And so if we're able to leverage some of that investment and leverage, you know, this influx of capital that's coming in, how can, you know, those surrounding properties really continue to contribute to that as a district?
Yes, I agree with all of that. I think just to continue to elaborate and add to it would be thinking about existing, like one of the biggest things when we're thinking about a gentrifying neighborhood or business quarters, that it's been disinvested, right? And often I want to say that sometimes the money has often been there, right, and just not being utilized for that quarter. So like our federal government has community block grants that literally these areas are only eligible for them because they're low income, and yet those are sometimes mismanaged or not like really given access. Our communities are not given access to them. So there's something about I think having whether it's it doesn't need to be in the form of a business improvement district. It can be a merchants association, whatever. It could also be a LDC, a community development corporation, or a local development corporation. But having an entity that's focused on that commercial corridor, I think is really, really critical because they become not only advocates, you know, when there are these new developers that you can be in conversation with, but also like researchers of all the different resources that could be helpful. And I think, Amanda, I see you nodding your head because I think that you were a former ED of one, sure, that was like a big part of your work. And so I really think that work, it remains really, really critical because there are dollars that we should have access to that we just haven't historically been locked out of.
Yeah, oftentimes it's the, you know, property owners don't know what's available and don't know how to access it and don't have the skills or education to, you know, work through that process, because often there are grant applications and different things that you have to do. And so it can be some hand holding but, you know, more of an educational process that you have to do in order to help them and support them in the development process. And I know from in my district that we had a 10,000 square foot garage that was part of development for the BART Bay Area Rapid Transit. And it remained, you know, an empty shell for 7 years almost. And with support from the city and our Main Street program and a corporate sponsor and the developer, we were able to develop that space into a co-working space with a food hall and a coffee shop. But it took all of those groups coming together, ongoing engagement from, again, the community as well as the developers, city government, and all of that. And so really, you know, having an entity there, we were a business improvement district there to pull all of those groups together is really important, like you said, Kenyatta. So we need more of our folks working in our districts to really help to revitalize them and make certain that we stay there, that there isn't this huge displacement and that we take our dollars outside of our communities. So I wanted to hear also, you know, a lot of our districts don't really build around the heritage or the culture and the theme. And I think that that is really a great opportunity that has been missed.
Yes, I agree with that so much. Our culture is one of our assets. I think so much it's been pushed to us. Narratives about our Black neighborhoods, Black commercial districts, always in deficit. Like, you know, my dad actually gets really irritated by it and just turns off the TV. But, you know, if someone says this Black community, it's the negative is the first thing that people share with us. And so I just really want us to think about like our assets and our culture, particularly being one of our assets and our different cultural practices. So I think if we lead with assets, we can start with something like, you know, looking at our commercial corridors. What's going well on the corridor? Why do people come? You know, answering those questions for ourselves and then building programming, events, and marketing that centers that, I think is much more advantageous for us, because we've been pushed so many negative things about us. Being able to operate and plan in assets and really protect and strengthen culture, as one of our principals talks about, is more than advantageous for us. There's that our culture is also like brings everybody out, like, you know. So if we talk about foot traffic, that is like a huge pull.
Yeah, building events around that culture. I know that we were able to really bring people out and to support some of our small pop-up businesses through our events and festivals, and, you know, having the blues and, you know, all of the stuff that our folks really enjoy really is an opportunity. And Bobby, I don't know if you had any.
I would like to echo, you know, a lot of what Kenyatta said, you know, specifically, you know, thinking about how our culture is also very communal, right? It's like we share a lot of spaces and, you know, laughter and joy and dancing, all of that together. And, you know, one of the strategies I've been perpetuating within like the real estate space is really like, all right, what is the role of multi-tenanting spaces? So it's like, you know, how are these, you know, businesses such as like in the food hall or, you know, historically flea markets and outdoor markets, et cetera, they're sharing space together and they're, you know, benefiting from one another's customer and learning, you know, business tips from each other and all of the things that are just inherent from human connection. It's an opportunity that, you know, we can actually build upon within our corridors and our, you know, just really thinking about, all right, well, let's like share the cost of, you know, 1,500 square feet across very like aligned businesses, or let's create smaller spaces in order for them to actually, you know, be able to, you know, say, yeah, I'm getting control kind of the experience, but I'm so close to one another. You know, we're so close to one another, we're able to benefit from those things. And so, you know, utilizing creative design within that as well to, you know, really not only highlight the culture that's associated. So, you know, what is, you know, I know when we had our pre-call, I was like, you know, porch culture is what always comes to mind for me. It's like, I love being outside with my friends and family and just like, you know, whether it's at a barbecue or, you know, just sitting outside and having a conversation, like all of those things are inherent to me. And so, you know, how do we perpetuate some of that within design work as well? So, you know, creating, you know, we have the outdoor cafe seatings, which, you know, if you look across many landscapes, I know in DC, most of them weren't able to take advantage of streeteries, you know, and they weren't able to, you know, benefit from outdoor dining during COVID. The critical kind of opportunity for, you know, many of the like restaurants, but also realizing that it was critical because, you know, Black communities in those wards were like also the highest infected. And so thinking about, you know, what are the real opportunities to generate some of these cultural nuances within the built environment.
Yeah. And a lot of times that comes with groups working together. It's not just one entity that can make that happen. And it's through partnership and really involving broad stakeholders in the development of the ecosystem and supporting the entrepreneurs and the entire district. So I know that we are coming up on our last few minutes here. And I just wanted to share that, you know, Main Street is a really fantastic methodology and approach to support, urban neighborhoods as well as in commercial districts throughout. It is a methodology that I have used and has really broad, opportunity to involve stakeholders throughout in the economic development, the design and promotion and marketing, and the overall vitality of a neighborhood. So I certainly will offer that approach in our Urban Made program to districts throughout, and others who are interested can contact me. And our Vice President of Revitalization and Urban Planning, Urban Main Street, is Dion Bowe. And she's been doing some great work over the last 5 years with our Urban Main program in Main Street America. So happy to work with her and continue this work that we're doing. Kenyatta, wrap up or any last words you want to?
One, it was great sharing space with you all, hearing about all of the work that you're doing. I think my biggest plug is making things our own. It's okay, like Main Street programs. I've been a part of them, and when I was working formally with New York City government. And I think there's something special about when Black neighborhoods and commercial districts particularly make things our own and figure out, oh, okay, we have, in New Orleans, folks have parades coming through their commercial corridors. Like, what more do you need for a sidewalk sale? But like that many people, as long as it's properly, like, this is where you then need people to properly think out the logistics of that. So my big thing is like merchants associations matter, having collective practice matter, and not being focused around the individual, and really elevating and highlighting our culture. Please check out the manifesto. There's 14 principles there that can all be elevated and highlighted. And reach out to Black Space if you are a Black-led group that really wants to co-create and co-work with each other.
Bobby, any last words from you?
Yes. So I'll start with challenge your policymakers. They oftentimes come down the road with transportation improvements, followed by incentive districts that really spur a lot of, this investment into the community or reinvestment into the community from those outside of the community, and determine ways how can the community itself, or those who are active representing or even, I would say like pushed to be representative of the community. How can we work with them in order to make sure that they're getting these opportunities and taking advantage of, not the international affordable housing developer that has figured out how to take advantage of the tax credits and then end up pricing out the people because AMI is already a structural issue. But that's again another topic. So challenge your policymakers to really think critically about what they're doing in order to prevent displacement, both culturally as well as physical, and really drive for new opportunities.
Excellent. Well, I think our time is up. There was a question and a comment about the color of law. I don't know if any of you have read that, and financial instructions to realtors, developers, and to help to affect the equity gap and the lack of investment in our communities. What can we do collectively? And I think that's a lot of what we've been talking about, is what we can do collectively, challenge the policymakers, work with Main Street programs, other community development organizations, and developers that are working in these communities. And if you have a business, connect with those folks as well and learn more about, the opportunities and resources that are there to support your business. So with that, I think we are all done. Carmen, do we still have time to take more questions?
Hey, yeah, if there are more questions in the chat, feel free. We have one that just come in from Maya White. How did Black Space engage residents in the writing of the Black Space Manifesto?
That's a great question. The manifesto came out of, and I know it's weird, but we were informally together as a group. We started that work in Brownsville. So for a year, we were in conversations with residents and then cultural producers. And that is actually what informed us to say, okay, we need to codify how we're showing up. That work was informed by those conversations we were having with people, particularly in Brownsville, and the ways that people were also checking us, right? So like, for example, we said we were having like a reflection session, and one of the youth from Youth Design Center in Brownsville was like, that's not right. That's not how we think about it. And and from that conversation, we had such an amazing like clarity moment. And that gets back to where you end up with a principle like Center of the Lived Experience. So those were all informed by our work in Brownsville and our way of trying to show up as correctly to people.
All right, that's it. That's all I'm seeing in the chat. Thank y'all so much. This was great. It was hella informative. I'm gonna just go ahead and just say hella. It was hella informative.
Yes.
As this whole conference will be. So everybody stay tuned. You guys got great feedback in the chat. People absolutely loved it. I put your contact info in the chat, so don't be surprised if folks start to reach out to you. That's why they're doing it, because I shared it with them. But thank you so much again for your participation. And feel free to watch the rest of the sessions, y'all.
Sounds good. I got a quick question for you. Where you get this t-shirt from?
That's good.
Yes.
Well, I actually designed it. So my company, Elevators, actually makes these shirts. So I will send y'all some shirts. We will reconvene, connect after this is over, and I'm gonna send y'all one. So yeah, shout out to as many of the districts as I could fit on a shirt.
I love that.
Great. Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.